Adam,
Yes, sir.
do you know any Olympic athletes?
I recently found out that someone from my school, the year below me, was Taiwan's first Winter Olympic athlete this year, but I didn't really know her. So, no, but we might have been in the same room.
I'm not surprised someone from your high school is an Olympic athlete. Hello and welcome to Revolutions of Our Time, the podcast where we analyze protests and revolutions, past and present, and try to make sense of it all. I'm Sam, and joining me, as always, is a man whose high school I'm sure has produced many a Winter Olympic athlete. Adam, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Certainly not many people tended to ski for leisure. Let's say that.
Okay, got it. I'm surprised there's no one representing North Korea that went to your high school.
No, but there was a brief moment where I thought that Kim Jong-un went to my school because someone else told me that he did. But then I looked into it and he went to an international school in Bern, not in Zurich.
Down the road relatively.
Down the road relatively. Apparently he had this friend at school who was actually a bodyguard. And he was just this guy in his 40s pretending to be a high school student. And everyone had to pretend he was a student.
Well, we had a 21 Jump Street situation go on when I was in high school where police were undercover trying to sell us drugs.
No way. They were in your class?
They were in our class for a year, and it was really messed up. And they did not catch any drug dealers. They just caught lonely kids that wanted to hook up with the hot 26-year-old who was saying she was 16.
Oh my god.
Anyway, we're off track. But today we're going to be discussing the 2026 Winter Olympics, which are currently wrapping up as of recording today. I believe this is the closing ceremony.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah, but we're not really going to be talking about the games themselves, though shout out to Alyssa Liu from the US, who I'm not a big Winter Olympics guy. I'm not a supporting the US guy, to the chagrin of my father. But this girl from Oakland she has an incredible story. So if you haven't heard of it, she basically gave up skating after being the best in the world for her age. She retired for a few years to just be a normal kid, and then came back on her terms. Diet, music, training, everything was up to her, and she just skates with this joy that is infectious, to where it's someone like me who does not watch figure skating is like, wow, that's amazing. So hopefully people like that at these Olympic Games can be an inspiration to our young people around the world. But we're not going to be covering the athletics themselves. We're going to be looking at the protests surrounding the games. Before we start, though, some housekeeping regarding stories we've kind of discussed over the past year. I don't know if you saw this, Adam, but the South Korean president, Yoon Suk-yeol, was sentenced to life in prison last week for his attempted coup in December 2024.
I did see that, and I saw reports that a lot of people were unhappy with that. They thought it was too lenient. They wanted the death penalty.
I heard the death penalty being thrown around as well. But as we know, these were majorly influenced by protests, by popular protests by the Korean people in December 2024 and January 2025, which it's funny in retrospect to hear history being labeled in real time, because this is now being labeled the Revolution of Light due to the K-pop light sticks that were in the crowd. I love how your first reaction was, oh.
I mean, the first one was curiosity, and the second one was that curiosity is satisfied, but not in a very satisfying way.
You know what that's exactly like? That's like finding out that the Stadium of Light is in fact in Sunderland.
Right, yes. Exactly like that.
In other news, the former Prince Andrew of the UK has been arrested.
Yes.
I'm not exactly sure why, because they're saying it's not related to Epstein, but it's related to him being an ambassador of the state that might have leaked information or something. But
no, so what that is, they've got him on misuse of public office. That's the charge. But it's like how Al Capone was ultimately got for tax evasion. This is just the easier way to arrest him.
Expand the case.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw the police statement when they arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, former Prince Andrew.
I did not.
It was so funny because, actually, let me just pull this up. This is the Thames Valley Police statement on arresting Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. As part of the investigation, we have today, 19th of February, arrested a man in his 60s from Norfolk on suspicion of misconduct of public office and are carrying out the searches at addresses in Berkshire and Norfolk. We will not be naming the arrested man as per national guidance.
That is great. Yeah, he's an unnamed man that lived on the Sandringham estate. Could be anyone.
Could be anyone. And it was on his birthday, which was a big thing. And I've heard from people likely to know such things, a big thing for him personally, like Andrew being arrested on his birthday, that would be a blow personally to him. So
I mean, when you're a prince that does nothing, like, I'm sure your birthday is a momentous day of the year. And shout out to my former home, York, who no longer has a duke.
Yeah.
Maybe we will separate and be a free city with a doge one day. Who knows?
That'd be cool.
But what this kind of shows to me is that in this neoliberal, US-dominated capital world, CEOs are more royalty than actual royalty these days, because no one in the private sector has really been done like that. But they've got Prince Andrew in cuffs.
No, it's fascinating watching how the royalty is the first sort of symbolic arrest. Like, Andrews was particularly high profile. Obviously, he's the king's brother, but like Peter Mandelson, who was apparently good friends with Epstein, was a lord and was actively texting or emailing Epstein about how Brexit was going to be amazing for his portfolio and terrible for Britain.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they were like, you can read those texts. And like Epstein was emailing Mandelson being like, so any bargains I can snap up? When he's talking about the British economy.
Yeah.
Now he has been stripped of his peerage, but like he's not been arrested yet, which is an interesting one. And that a prince is the first to go is, yeah, interesting what that says.
Yeah, but I mean, we'll see what happens when actually the owners of these huge private equity firms and people like Elon Musk, if they ever face any justice, which I highly doubt. But
and we'll see what happens to Andrew as well. Like, it, being arrested isn't nothing, but we'll see what actually comes of it.
Does seem like the royal family is very fine with him being the scapegoat.
It really does, yeah. But I also think they know when they're onto a losing battle, right? Like I think they, you don't get to rule a country over generations if you don't have a good sense of self-preservation. Yeah,
King Charlie can just roll out the "I'm only happy dearest mama is not alive to see this," and I hope everything gets brushed under the table. But anyway. Some sad recent news as well that is still ongoing is that Cuba is effectively being starved out without Venezuelan oil and is now facing a blockade, not just embargo, but like a full-on blockade from the U.S. And there's talks of freedom flotillas from the U.S. and Mexico to break through the Cuban blockade symbolically, which will discuss Cuba, I'm sure. But you have like American celebrities like Camila Cabello putting out ridiculous statements talking about how sad it is what's going on, but that, this evil regime in Cuba needs to fall.
Yeah. But has a flotilla been arranged already?
No, I've only seen discussion and like recruitment for it. They want to get like U.S. veterans and to launch from Florida, I think. But yeah, I've only seen talks. So that'll be something to look at going forward. But Adam, let's jump into the Olympics. Yeah. I'm sure the Swiss part of you absolutely loves the winter games,
oh, yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, big fan.
I mean, it really does kind of seem like the Winter Olympics are just arranged for the sake of like Norway, Switzerland, Sweden's egos.
Well, yeah, in part for sure. It helps to have snowy mountains to practice on, especially
to
if you're
practice your expensive sports.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, let's set the stage. The 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan and Cortina d'Ampezzo. Is that how you say it? My Italian is horrendous.
Cortina d'Ampezzo, I think so. Yeah. Milan Cortina.
Yeah, they ran from February 6th to 22nd. The opening ceremony took place at the legendary football stadium, the San Siro, in Milan. But as world leaders and athletes congregated inside, protesters gathered outside. Now, Adam, the Olympics sells themselves as, quote, above politics and a unifying force. But we know there's no such thing as being apolitical.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think makes the Olympics a flashpoint for protests, not just now, but in history as well?
Well, I think there's a few things going on. One is that it is a world forum that people are invested in on a sort of personal level, more so than the United Nations, for example. That's all about government. It's very abstract, it's very complicated. But the Olympics, all countries of the world in fact, the Olympics, I believe, has more member nations than actually in the UN. Like there's like I think Hong Kong has competed independently at the Olympics and stuff.
And Puerto Rico, too.
And Puerto Rico, interesting.
Shout out Bad Bunny.
And so I think there's that people see this as a sort of world cultural moment. And perhaps I think some people see a vision of hope for like how international competition should be done, right? Like this is a form of international competition, but ultimately, at least as it is perceived, a fairly harmless one, and maybe even feels a bit more egalitarian. Like, sure, the most medals will go to the countries that can throw the most resources behind it, but everyone gets to have a go, and I think that is something that people like. And of course, it has made itself political, like when Russian athletes were banned from the Olympics. Now, this was over doping and not over the invasion of Ukraine, but I think that didn't help their case.
One is a lot worse in the eyes of the Olympic Committee.
Yeah, it's true.
How dare you besmirch our sacred games?
I think all of those play a factor.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, location has always been a very political factor as well. I mean, you had like the 1936 games taking place in Germany. Mm-hmm. You had in the 80s at like the height of Cold War tension, both the US and Russia hosting, Soviet Union hosting. Those weren't like accidental choices, right? And you typically don't actually have like very neutral countries hosting the Olympics very often. You don't have like Switzerland hasn't hosted very often, I don't believe. Singapore, any of these places.
I don't know. I wonder if Switzerland can, because the IOC is headquartered there. I'm not sure.
But it does seem that, you know, with sports washing being a newer emerging, well, maybe it's more of a renaissance because Hitler tried to sports wash as well.
Yeah.
But with sports washing emerging as a bigger factor in this like cultural battle around the world, these very polarizing countries are throwing their names in the hat for the Olympics and for like the World Cup. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Just the whole phrase, like, I hear this all the time from like conservatives, which like, why'd you have to make it political? It's like, dude, everything is political.
Everything is. Yeah. Before we get into the protests around the Olympics, did you hear about the doping scandal this year involving the men's ski jump?
I don't think so. Tell me.
So when in the men's ski jump, you have this specialized suit, right? A form-fitting ski suit. Mm-hmm. And every additional centimeter of fabric that you can get can be a real boost in terms of airtime. So these male athletes would inject their penis with like Botox to make their dick bigger for when they were going to be measured for the suit. And then they would have the fluid drained or whatever. So they'd have an additional like 2 to 4 centimeters of fabric in their suit. And that could get up to an extra like 20 meters on the ski jump. It's like it compounds into a huge difference.
Were they all doing this, or was it a specific country?
I think it was Norway. I think it was the Norwegian athletes, if I remember right, were doing
There's some weird stories coming out of Norway.
Yeah.
This Olympics. There was like that dude that like won the gold, and he's like, I have to admit something. I cheated on my girlfriend. I'm sorry.
It's worse than that, because he won bronze and his teammate, who was also Norwegian, won gold, and none of the news was about him. It was all about the guy who admitted to cheating on his girlfriend.
Yeah, and I think they won the Olympics, right? I
think
they
won
top
most
of
medals.
the table.
Yeah.
Which, this is why it feels like a fake Olympics, because like in the Summer Olympics, there's no chance Norway has a shot.
No.
But they all have tracks, they have track facilities and swimming, they could.
It's true. Yeah.
This just feels like a white people ego boost Olympics with Japan, China, and Korea kindly invited.
Maybe.
I did not hear about that doping scandal. Did they get just like disqualified or what?
An investigation is ongoing.
Did they compete?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. According to a study by the journal Frontiers found that every 2 centimeters in suit size reduced drag by 4% and increased lift by 5%. It said the 2 centimeter change in the suits was equivalent to an extra 5.8 meters in jump length.
Okay, we'll see what happens with this. I look forward to your update and your ongoing attention to this story this year. But yeah, let's. I did not know about that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, let's jump into those protests. There were 3 fronts of protests in Milan by the same organization. The first grievance was the U.S. delegation being there. Weeks before the games, news broke that ICE agents would be accompanying the U.S. delegation, including Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, to the opening ceremony, which is insane. Like, when I heard that, what were your thoughts on ICE agents being in Milan?
I mean, I think it would have caused a pretty serious diplomatic incident, potentially. Even if they'd been restrained and not killed anybody. I think that security details, barring a couple of bodyguards maybe, is the provision of the host country when it comes to foreign diplomats, right?
Well, for the Olympics, they actually, participating countries bring like a small police force to represent them in the city to help with security. Huh. I didn't know this till my in-laws went to Paris in 2024, and there was like Spanish police and Japanese police just kind of in the city. It's more a show of like camaraderie than anything else, I guess. There's probably a lot of nefarious stuff if we dug below the surface, but basically the U.S. was bringing ICE as their representative police force to the games.
Oh, I see. That's not a neutral statement either. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, why did we got to make it political, JD Vance?
And I suppose it's as unpopular as ICE is in the United States, it is also extremely unpopular in Europe. Like we've heard of it.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone not voting reform that has a positive view of ICE internationally. Yeah, so as we discussed last episode, we discussed the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy in Minneapolis. These two would become symbols of the protests in Italy. Protests began about a week before the opening ceremony, January 31st. Hundreds of people gathered in the Piazza 25th. I don't know how to say 25 in Italy.
I'm not sure.
Piazza 25th of Aprile in Milan. Now, this square was deliberately chosen for its name because it commemorates Italy's liberation from Nazi fascism on April 25th, 1945. This is what I mean about Europe having much better places to protest than America. Protesters carried visible photos of Good and Preddy. There are some quotes I wanted to share from these protesters and have you read.
Mm-hmm.
So this first quote is from Bruna Scianziani, who's an 18-year-old protester from Italy, according to NPR.
All the videos are public and everyone can see what's happening. The perception of America has changed.
And then Al Jazeera had a quote from a protester named Silvana Grassi, who was holding up an ICE equals Gestapo sign, and it said this.
It makes me want to cry to think of it. It's too horrible. How did they elect such a terrible, evil man?
So there you go, to the Americans saying that people love us overseas. Media reports clarified that the ICE agents coming to Milan were actually from Homeland Security investigations, a unit focused on cross-border crime and not enforcement and removal operations, the unit behind the domestic raids, and that they would be in a control room, not on the streets of Milan. So this all came out after the protests. But protesters rejected this distinction. There was another protester that Al Jazeera interviewed named Paolo Bortoletto, who said, even if it's not the same, we don't want them here. We're a peaceful country. We don't want fascists. It's their ideas to bother us. And the Milan mayor actually chimed in as well. So this is Mayor Giuseppe Sala, who said, this is a militia that kills, a militia that enters into the homes of people, signing their own permission slips, and it's clear they are not welcome in Milan, without a doubt. So even the mayor of Milan chiming in. But on February 6th, the opening ceremony happens. J.D. Vance appeared next to his wife, Usha, in the San Siro Stadium. And when they were on the big screen, they were met with the loudest boos I've ever heard at the Olympics. There were two overwhelming boos that night. There was one when J.D. Vance was shown and one when the Israeli team was walking out. Both of which I've seen. I mean, the Israeli media is very used to playing fake applause when their delegates are around the world, places like Eurovision and stuff. But America has started doing this too. The American team was met with boos, and on the NBC broadcast there was fake cheers pumped in.
Really?
So America has now resorted to the Israeli tactics.
Wow. I had heard that NBC switched off the boos digitally, but I did not know they added in cheers. I assumed they just played music or something.
I think the cheers were added on the digital media afterwards. If you look at the videos.
Right.
But in real time, I think they did just mute it. But yeah, says a lot about the state of the United States right now.
Yeah.
Overall, most American athletes stayed silent regarding the politics around their participation. But there were some mild critics of the regime. When asked how he felt representing the U.S. under the Trump administration and ICE's actions, there's a skier named Hunter Hess who responded. And he has the accent you'd think of a 22-year-old Olympic skier, where he said, if it aligns with my moral values, I feel like I'm representing it. But just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S. And he might have even an even more skier inflection to that. But it was very chill. It was a very chill, just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything going on, to which President of the United States, Donald Trump, responded on Truth Social. I'll let you read his response, actually.
Oh, no. Let me just get in character. Hess, a real loser, says he doesn't represent his country in the current Winter Olympics. If that's the case, he shouldn't have tried out for the team, and it's too bad he's on it.
There you go.
Not my best Trump impression, but you get the picture.
We get the picture. But this skier had death threats being sent to him by MAGA online, and very, very mild statement. And I have kind of been upset that more athletes aren't speaking out. Adam, what's your take on athletes representing countries that are doing terrible actions? Is it unfair to lump them in with their regimes, or are they obligated to speak up?
First, I want to draw your attention to another protester, Gus Kenworthy. He is British American, and so he's previously competed for the US and is now competing for Team GB. And he shared a post on Instagram of yellow snow spelling out "fuck ice," which was very charming. So, athletes representing their country who is doing terrible things, that's doing terrible things. I think it's a tricky one because there are a couple of things happening when it comes to athletics competitions. In a way, I can see the point of people who are saying, let's not make sports political, because there is a part of you that wants to view it in a sort of post-political lens where it's it's not about politics. It's about seeing what humans can do. Humans who are training for this one specific, amazing skill, seeing, what the limits of the human body are in these, specific and quite weird, often circumstances, right? Who thought of, okay, let's strap 2 planks of wood to our feet and see who can fall down this mountain the fastest. That's a strange thing that people genuinely sort of compete over. And it's tempting to view that as in terms of a post-national thing. We're all people competing together.
Yeah.
But the structure we have built for it is one in which that competition, that individual is associated with the national other, right? They are in that moment a part of the whole, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
I can see the temptation from the athlete to wash your hands of it in that way and say, look, it's nothing to do with me. I just want to throw myself down this mountain really fast. But you can't escape that you are representing that country. And you'll see that very quickly if you do anything that is deemed immoral or improper, right? You'll be booted from the team if you don't fit the image, right? Now, when you say immoral or improper, that depends on point of view. If you're involved in a sexual abuse scandal, you might well tough it out. But if you're posting in support of Palestine, then you might get booted fast.
Yeah.
So I think that people do know that they can't escape it, and it is an unfortunate reality that you making a statement is making a statement, and not making a statement is probably also making a statement, to greater or lesser degrees, but it's inescapable, I think.
Yeah, and I think one thing to point out is that however the athletes see themselves, like, history remembers them a certain way, and I think there is some hypocrisy to say, oh, like, these athletes don't represent the regime. And, like, to be fair, someone like Alyssa Liu, who's, like, pro-trans people, pro, like, internationalism, pro-good vibes, like, certainly doesn't represent Trump on a personal level. Yeah. But in the U.S., Olympians are regarded pretty highly, especially certain legendary figures. Like Jesse Owens is a household name in the U.S. I don't know if you know.
Oh, yeah, for sure. 1936 Olympics, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how widespread that is, like, globally, but in the U.S. he's incredibly famous for going to Nazi Germany, and, like, Hitler was presenting this project of the superior race, right, the Aryan man, and then Jesse Owens wins 4 gold medals as a black man from America. We don't remember those German athletes he was competing against as just athletes who had nothing to do with their regime. We say Jesse Owens defeated the Nazis at the Olympics.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. What do you think then about Russian athletes competing under the sort of Olympic flag rather than the Russian national flag? Because they're not fooling anybody, right? Like, and that's not what they're trying to do. I'm not saying it that way, but I wonder if it has an impact.
I'm kind of in support of this, like, neutral team, because then it is feeding into that, oh, we just are great athletes that want to compete at the highest stage. And I do feel like, I know it's impractical. It's these people have been training their whole lives. All they think about is their sport, essentially. But I do feel like if you wanted to make a statement that is, I do not represent my regime, whether that's Israel, whether that's the United States, whether that's Britain at various points, whether that's Iran, like, whether that's, you know, whoever, China, like, if you don't associate with what that represents, then it does seem like an option of competing on under a neutral flag should be the one you take. The Russian thing is kind of, it's transparent, and that's just the Russian team because it's only Russian athletes doing that. But if there was American athletes, if there was, like, Chinese athletes and other people within that banner, then it would be viewed as, oh, this is just the team of athletes.
Yeah, interesting. So is that team, can you elect to be on that team? Have I misunderstood that? I thought there was, like, a deal that the Olympics made.
I'm not sure about that team, to be honest. There is a refugee team. People have chosen to represent that team even when they're not, like, officially refugees, just because they don't want to represent the country they're from, because they live somewhere else, and then they don't plan to return either because they left for, like, in a sense they are refugees, but not officially a refugee, right? Yeah. So there is precedence for that. But it does seem like if that theory of just competing with the best of the best, why do we have the flags in the first place?
Yeah,
you know?
right, yeah.
Why not just gather the best? I mean, they do, right? Like, basically the NCAA, all the college sports is just the Olympics training ground, right? But anyway, that was point number 1 of these protests, to get back on track, was U.S. involvement. And I wanted to get that take from you on athletes representing their countries. Because to me, I mean, I'm obviously a lefty political person. So to me, if I was an Olympic athlete, I would have to speak out. And I would feel that that would be my obligation. But I understand that a lot of these people, like, their whole life is just their sport. So to them, I know it's a very hard road to go down. Point number 2 that the protests were aimed at was Israel, America's buddy. The Israeli delegation was booed at the opening ceremony. And actually, they were ready for this because then the stadium music blared out really loud at the loudest point of the whole ceremony to drown out the boos. Reports emerged that several members of the Israeli bobsled, or bobsleigh depending on your country, team actually served in the Israeli occupational forces during the attacks on Gaza since October 7th, 2023. So protesters, they actually do note that contract between Russian and Belarusian athletes being barred from competition due to the war in Ukraine and the doping, as you mentioned. While Israeli athletes, some with direct military service in Gaza, competed without restriction. There was a quote from Potere al Popolo, which is the far left party, one of the far left parties in Italy, that I would like you to read. They put out this statement regarding the Israeli participation.
Amid the unanimous silence of our political class, both in government and opposition, soldiers who served on the front lines in Gaza, proudly claiming responsibility for this crime on social media, have paraded around.
So essentially that one's short and sweet. Israel and their participation. That was prong number 2 for these protests. And the third is more of a wider umbrella of gentrification as violence. The official group doing these protests formed, actually called in English the Unsustainable Olympics Committee, or the Compitado Insostenible Olimpiadi, or the CIO. They formed as a coalition of grassroots sports groups, civic and environmental movements, students, housing activists, combative unions, pro-Palestine networks, and trans-feminist collectives. They all got together to form this committee. Their specific grievances are that dozens of Olympics-related construction projects remain unfinished in Milan. They didn't finish in time for the games. Green areas around the Alps and around the city have been devastated. There's little prospect of the expensive infrastructure, like a new bobsleigh track, ever being able to serve the public in future.
Mm-hmm.
And Milan was already very unaffordable for the working class, and the Olympics only accelerated gentrification and speculation. There's another quote from that left-wing political party.
The Milan Cortina Winter Olympics are not a sporting event. They are an economic and political operation that turns territories, people, and cities into commodities. A massive financial development project that enriches the few while dumping social, environmental, and human costs on the many.
And there was, under the umbrella of this committee, Italy's alternative student opposition. They gave a statement saying, the Olympics are, in fact, the direct expression of an entire political class. From the Meloni government to the Sala City administration, passing through the Fontana regional government, which has turned them into an opportunity for exploitation, real estate and financial speculation, as well as further legitimizing Zionism in the city. Now, Adam, the protesters had multiple targets, as we've discussed. ICE, Israel, the Italian government, the Olympics as a system. And does that make the movement stronger by bringing different groups together and targeting all of these things, or does it dilute the message?
Well, I definitely think that bringing disparate groups together is really key to building a successful coalition. I think that if you have aims, you need to be working on as many fronts as possible. If only because of like the scale of resources needed versus the size of the challenge. Like, I don't see a scenario in which there is a vanguard anti-Olympic movement that can sort of spin things out by itself. At the same time, it seems to me, and maybe we just haven't got there yet, but whilst this is a broad coalition that has been brought together, it doesn't seem like they have specific demands so much as it does grievances, which are hard to action.
It is a draw of attention. Like, eyes are on Milan in this moment, so protesters want to reflect those gazes somewhere adjacent, expressing their discontent with all of this. Now, there was some escalation after this. There was a march in Milan on Saturday, February 7th, where thousands marched peacefully during the day, singing, dancing, walking arm in arm. The protest route passed the Olympic Village, which was secured by a large police cordon. Some protesters threw fireworks and smoke bombs towards the athletes' housing, but the objects fell far short. The march diverted away from the village, and clashes began when a smaller group reached the Piazzale Corvetto. This group threw fireworks at police, who then charged, and protesters later targeted police vans with additional fireworks. Now, the police response was water cannons and tear gas, and this were the videos that you probably saw related to the protests surrounding the Olympics in Milan. I will say that might sound extreme to some people, like the flares and fireworks. This is kind of just a regular match day for football in Italy. So
yeah, that would be pretty major in the US, I feel like, but that's fairly standard.
Well, I think it'd be major in the US because the police would just fire guns at the protesters. That same day, there were 3 incidents on northern Italy's rail network. There were severed electrical cables on the Bologna high-speed rail. A rudimentary explosive device was found on a switch of the Bologna-Padova line, and a fire at an electrical cabin in the Adriatic town of Pesaro. Transport Minister Matteo Salvini, who is also the Deputy Prime Minister of the country, called it a premeditated attack, and the Transport Ministry launched investigations for suspected terrorism. Perpetrators face multi-million euro damage claims. Now, there was also a direct parallel to sabotage of French rail networks during the 2024 Paris Olympics opening ceremony.
Yeah.
No group has claimed responsibility for this.
The Paris Olympics had perhaps the best protest of all time. I don't know if you recall this one.
It's a bold claim.
They cleaned up the Seine so that they could do the swimming in the Seine. And
yeah, you've talked about this.
Some activists worked out the flow rate and took dumps in the river so that it would hit the swimming area in time for the event. I don't think any turds were ever actually seen, so maybe they got the maths wrong, but like it was a good effort.
Logistics on that is, I don't know, you'd need a lot of friends for that one to work well. But
oh yeah,
I'm glad the Paris Olympics could bring us that. Now, there was an official response from Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. I don't know why, but the Italian government releases all official announcements on Facebook, of all places.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, Prime Minister said on February 8th that, quote, "Then there are those who are enemies of Italy and Italians. The protesters demonstrate against the Olympics, causing these images to end up on television around the world, after others cut the railway cables to prevent the trains from leaving. Solidarity, once again, with the police, the city of Milan, and all those who will see their work undermined by these gangs of criminals." Now, the IOC also put out a statement. They said, "Peaceful protest is legitimate, but, quote, violence has no place at the Olympic Games." IOC President Kirsty Coventry acknowledged pre-Olympic distractions are, quote, sad, but expressed faith that the opening ceremony, magic and spirit, would take over, which kind of seems like a very IOC statement, right? Railway sabotage is quite a huge escalation, and if it was connected to the protests, does that change how we view them? And if it wasn't connected, does it give the government an excuse to crush the dissent?
Well, I think it definitely gives them an excuse, whether or not it was connected. Even the suspicion can be used to crack down, as we've seen many times, right? Like it's even in Spain and in China, you have to go through like airport scanners to get on trains because of explosive devices being found on trains, terrorist attacks carried out on trains. As for does it change how we view it? I suppose it depends what you mean, right? Like it probably will reinforce that this is a more serious issue than people might think. You can have your opinion on the tactics. The severity of the tactics, in theory, should correspond to the severity of the issue, but how severe an issue something is and how severe tactics called for in response to that should be is of course a matter for debate. I don't know that I have a strong view in this case. It seems like no one was hurt, but it also seems unclear as to what they were trying to achieve, or indeed unclear as to if these were connected to the protest movements. So not really enough information to build a sort of coherent conclusion on, but there are lots of factors that can affect it.
True. And there were some material changes that happened as a result of these protests. None of them very meaningful towards what the protests were actually about. But the main one is that a new security package was fast-tracked because there was a violent protest in Turin the previous weekend that left over 100 officers injured, according to the Italian government. This law allows Italian police to detain suspected troublemakers for up to 12 hours before demonstrations, which, I wanted to get your take on that because that's alarming to me.
Wow, I mean, how...
This was according to the BBC in an article on February 6th.
That is concerning because who gets to decide whether you are projected to be a troublemaker? And even if you are projected to be a troublemaker, can you detain someone for maybe committing a crime? It seems like the Italian government thinks they can, but they haven't actually done anything. So this takes the core foundational legal principle of innocent until proven guilty and completely transforms it. These people are guilty and they can't even be proven innocent until deemed no longer a threat. That's very troubling.
Yeah, and I think this will be something that sticks. Like, it's not just for this short interim Olympic period. This did receive some backlash. There were trade unions, as well as the ANPI, which is an organization that serves to protect the memory of Italian World War II partisan resistance fighters. They came out and they were also involved in the protests we've discussed. Now, as I discussed before, that choice of that square, the April 25th square, was deliberate. It was chosen by the ANPI representatives to invoke Italy's liberation from fascism, and it frames the current protests as a continuation of that struggle. Now, there was one last, I guess, material change. It's pretty immaterial, but there was, I don't know how this got through, but there was a building in the U.S. camp called the Ice House that was supposed to be just a chill out area for U.S. figure skating, USA hockey, and U.S. speed skating in the camp. And the name was changed to the Winter House.
Well, good, I suppose. Fine.
Yeah. So I think that's the fact that that's the biggest victory achieved. Yeah. But anyway, I wanted to get back to the ANPI, which was the veterans and descendants of the World War II anti-fascist resistance. Now, they were at these protests. And what does it mean when the generation that fought Mussolini sees parallels in today's Italy and America?
I guess it means that things are pretty serious. Something that I have been thinking about for a while, particularly since Trump 2, is Umberto Eco's essay on fascism. And Umberto Eco grew up under Mussolini's Italy. He was born in, when was he born? 1932 in the Kingdom of Italy. So he was a boy when this was going on, and he identifies I think it's 14 things that are signs of fascism sort of popping up, and it so closely mirrors Trumpian rhetoric that this was a real moment for me, encountering this text. I'm like, oh, this is exactly where we are at. And I think it has been a very long process of people trying to accept that. And I think for a lot of people, they still don't. And I think that people who grew up under OG Italian fascism, origin of the term fascism, maybe will be persuasive. I mean, just looking at some of these points, traditionalism implies the rejection of modernism. Both fascists and Nazis who worship technology, whilst traditionalist thinkers usually reject it. Irrationalism, cult of action for action's sake. The cult of tradition, believing that there was a previous golden age that we must return to, make America great again. And then various things about anti-elitism whilst being elite, and machismo as a substitute for masculinity. It all fits in there.
Yeah.
So I think that perhaps this is yet another powerful sign of what many people have been saying for many years.
I think back to I took a course on modern Greece in my undergrad that was really powerful because the professor was from a family of Greek communists that had to flee. And Greece has kind of been a really unique study in modern world economics at a very rapid pace. Mm-hmm. Things that happen over 100 years in one country happen over 15 in Greece. Yeah. If you look at the 20th century, they had, fascist dictators, communist uprisings. They brought the king back. They kicked the king out. They, it's just all this, just their precarious place in the Cold War made them experience all this at a rapid pace because they would get so much funding from both sides. And it just kind of reminds me of the old uncles and grandfathers of Greece who were the partisans dusting off the old rifle again, because every 20 years it came into use. And these guys in Italy and their families, this is a very ceremonial sort of group. the ANPI. Like, think of Britain, and you have, every little town has a cenotaph sort of cross dedicated to the war. Which most people think of the war as World War II, but most of those are dedicated to World War One.
Well, it depends. When you see a symbol like that, you do think World War One, but when you say the war generally, you do think of World War II. That is correct, now that I think about it.
And in Britain, like, you get these groups that lay the wreaths of poppies and whatever, they're very ceremonial old people that are just doing their thing. And this is kind of what that group in Italy was until fairly recently. Yeah. So it must feel surreal to be like 100 years old and be like, are we really going through this again? Protests at the Olympics are nothing new. I just wanted to run through some notable ones really quick just to give some context. And the most famous one, I would say, is Mexico City, 1968. Tommy Smith and John Carlos of the United States give a Black Power salute on the podium after winning gold and bronze in the 200 meters.
Yeah, famous picture.
Very famous picture. And this is part of the broader Olympic project for human rights. It occurred just 10 days after the Mexican government's Tlatelolco massacre of student protesters who were protesting very similar things that the protesters in Milan were protesting for: the gentrification of their city, the environmental impact of the Olympics, these material realities of people starving but then hosting these big games. The outcome of that, Tommy Smith and John Carlos were immediately expelled from the games, faced death threats, ostracized for decades from the Olympics as a whole, even though, as you said, it's like such an iconic image. Specifically, the Winter Olympics have had some protests as well. Grenoble, how would you say that?
Grenoble.
He said.
Grenoble? I'm not sure in English. Grenoble.
1968. French protesters target games over environmental concerns and commercialization. So this is exactly what a lot of these Milan protesters were also saying. Similarly, Calgary, 1988, environmental groups protest the impact of skiing developments on the Rocky Mountains. Salt Lake City, 2002, post 9/11 security state begins and anti-war protests during the games erupt over the impending Iraq invasion. Sochi, 2014, international outcry over Russia's anti-LGBT laws and limited protests there due to intense state repression. Oh boy, would we yearn to go back to this Russia, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
This was even before the Georgian invasions, right? Well, the second one.
Yeah.
And then Pyeongchang in 2018, animal rights groups protested the Korean dog meat trade, and activists targeted Olympic sponsors over North Korea's involvement and participation in the games as like a co-host.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some larger, I would call them not exactly protests, that have happened at the Olympics as well. 1972, the Israeli team was taken hostage and killed in Munich by the Black September organization. Again, not exactly a protest, but a noteworthy event that would have been an elephant in the room to leave out. And then the boycotts of the 1980 Moscow Games and the 1984 Los Angeles Games by both spheres of influence in the Cold War. Now, remember, keep the politics out of it, Adam, right? Like, I've just been listing basically the history of the Olympics, but have the games always been political?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, not even a question to us, but like to our listeners, yes, there's no such thing as like an apolitical Olympics, right?
No, for sure not.
So
there's not an apolitical event, really, but the Olympics, ever less so.
It'd be, maybe we should make a mission to try to find the world's truly apolitical event.
The world's least political thing.
Yeah, bonus points for it being like actually noteworthy, but it'll be hard to find.
Yeah, for sure.
We pointed back to Paris 2024 and the poop protests, but also to their high-speed rail network being sabotaged a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And like Italy, the French government used the incident to justify enhanced security measures that still exist in France today. We've talked about it at the beginning, like, why do the Olympics attract protests? As you said, it's one of the few events the whole world watches at the same time. I do think the Winter Olympics have far fewer viewers than the summer ones, as like most of Latin America, Africa, and Asia do not even participate. So, but concentrated public spending also is huge in the Olympics. Like the enormous sums become visible and create clear targets, right? Like building a bobsleigh or a giant ski jump that'll never be used again for millions of dollars is pretty obvious. And displacement and gentrification. So the Olympics create these clear victims of evicted residents and destroyed environments that they make along the way.
Especially because I don't know if you've seen the pictures that surfaced from the Torino Winter Olympics in 2006.
I've not.
So Turin, which is also in northern Italy, hosted the Winter Olympics in 2006. And there are a load of venues which are just abandoned now, like a luge and skeleton run that's abandoned, a ski jumper track. It's completely empty and fallen to bits.
I think it's more rare to have full Olympic facilities that are still in use. We kind of praise domestic China policy quite a lot. But the Beijing Olympics in 2008 have even had their facilities be renovated because they're used so much. Like the swimming is used for the competitive swimming in the area, as well as like the local facilities. You can go use the Olympic swimming pools at certain times if you're a resident of Beijing. Shout out to them for upkeeping all that stuff.
I actually, and I am loath to give anything to Britain, but I think the London Summer Olympics in 2012 has been used pretty well.
Yeah, they made a whole park, and then like West Ham plays their games.
West Ham plays there, yeah.
To the disappointment of all the residents of West and I'm sure East Ham. No, they have made good use of it. There was a lot of complaints about that development though at the time. Right?
Oh, for sure. It on gentrification grounds as well. It was traditionally a poorer part of London, and I mean, has it brought more money? Maybe, but it's also made it kind of soulless. That area, the Stratford Olympic area, they've got like just new developments.
You don't think the Stratford Westfield Mall is a beacon of culture in London?
It's one of the worst places in the city.
Yeah.
The only one that might be worse is the White City Westfield, which is also horrible.
Yeah, but I digress. London has done a decent job, especially compared to, like, as you said, Turin. Now, there's also that idealism gap that you pointed out, where the rhetoric behind the Olympics themselves, which is like unity, peace, competition, and then the reality of like militarized security, corporate money, and authoritarian hosts is super glaring. So a big question for you here is, looking at its history, what's the difference, if any, about this year in Milan? Or is it just another chapter? And does ICE and Israel and anti-gentrification make this one unique? Or is this just a chapter of a long book of protests at the Olympics?
I think it's a chapter, but maybe a weightier chapter. I think that the scrutiny that was paid attention to, particularly J.D. Vance and the vice president being booed, I think that not nothing. I think that the Israeli team being booed is also not nothing, but neither of those events are particularly surprising given the climate that we are in. But I don't know how much the needle will be moved. I think the interesting one in terms of the Winter Olympics that we haven't really seen this year so much because of other events that have been going on is the Winter Olympics have a shelf life, right? Like climate change means that we don't have that many Winter Olympics left, at least ones that aren't like in the Arctic Circle.
I haven't thought about that.
And that didn't really come up, and maybe that will take more precedence at future events.
Well, I think one thing that has been horrifying about the many other horrifying aspects of fascism rising in the United States and Britain and the rest of the West is that climate change is still happening, just no one seems to care.
Yeah.
And I don't know, perhaps this will be that first chapter of the section titled, the New World Order, because we're looking at the first Olympics with these hyper-nationalized countries, right?
Yeah.
But who knows?
Who knows?
So what happened next at these protests? I mean, they continued, but as is the case with major sporting events, such as the Olympics, the World Cup. The glory of the sporting achievements themselves often overshadow anything else once the games get going. I mean, I myself was a loud critic of the World Cup at Qatar, and then that World Cup ended up being one of the most spectacular on-the-pitch World Cups ever. And that's all people remember about it, right? Is Messi winning his first World Cup in a very wild final match. Now, the infrastructure questions remain. Will these ever serve the public in Milan? Most of them probably not. The political fallout in Italy remains. Meloni uses protest crackdowns to bolster her tough-on-crime image. Left and far left are further alienated in mainstream politics in Italy and Europe as a whole, because when I was doing some research for this episode, I saw some headlines about that organization of the partisan veterans, the ANPI. And some of the first headlines that came up were from like these conservative European websites where it basically said Italy's far left embraces the Ayatollah. And it was the article was about how they were condemning like Israeli actions. But then immediately they're plastered with, no, they support the Ayatollah in Iran. And that does seem to be happening a lot in Europe with the far left movements trying to be put in these boxes.
Yeah.
Which, update, Palestine action in the UK.
Oh, yeah. It has been deemed that it was not legally justifiable to have them prescribed as a terrorist organization. Now, they are still prescribed as a terrorist organization for now because that required a separate legal thing in order to deprescribe them. It seems likely that they will be when this review comes up. I can't remember the date, but it is soon. And if it isn't, well, that will be very interesting and very troubling because it means that the government is happy to ignore their own courts.
And that would be interesting. And no matter what happens with them, let's make it clear, Adam is not and has never been affiliated.
Correct. I have never been affiliated. And that is true, and I have never supported them, and that is also true.
Yeah. So, over here I will wish them success if they're off that list. For now, I also have no affiliation. That felt like an appropriate time to bring that up, especially because I forgot to put it in the housekeeping. But these new security laws in Italy are likely to remain in place and expand, as we discussed. The ICE agents, did they leave after the opening ceremony? Did they just remain out of sight? Who knows? The activists that were arrested under the new laws face uncertain futures. We don't exactly know what will happen, if terrorism charges will be pinned to them or not. It's very scary what's going on there. But I have a question for you, a sort of closing question. Adam, the Milan protests brought together anti-fascists, Palestine solidarity activists, housing advocates, environmentalists. They lost the media battle. Like, the headlines were about the violence, not about their grievances. Like, not why they were protesting, just the violence at the protests. So was this a failure, or did they plant the seeds for the next fight? What can we learn from this? And can huge sporting events like the Olympics be effectively protested against at all? I mean, we have like the World Cup coming up as well. Is it possible even?
I think it can be, but I don't think we're there. You often hear it said that cultural boycott was a big part of what ultimately led to the downfall of apartheid in South Africa. And part of that was rugby, right? The South African national rugby team was famously banned from international tournaments for many years as a result of apartheid, and South Africans themselves were sick of that. And it seems like that is a big part of sentiment within Israel amongst Israeli protesters. It doesn't seem like there is a huge anti-Zionist movement, which is not great, but it does seem like Israelis are sick of being booed when they go to sporting events and whatnot. They've not been excluded fully from it yet. But that kind of protest, that kind of more serious, more effective protest, the cultural boycotts, it requires a lot more organizational power. And whether there are groups of protesters who can sufficiently lobby the International Olympic Committee or FIFA or any number of organizations that are headquartered in Switzerland remains to be seen. And I think probably not at this stage.
we'll see. Maybe we'll have an episode about the World Cup coming up. But yeah, it does suck that these things can't be enjoyed for what they are on the pitch, or on, because it is really incredible. Like I said, there are some achievements that happened this Olympics that are worth looking into the stories because they were really inspiring. But at the same time, they are kind of muddled by the material realities of the politics of these games, which again have to be there. There's no, oh, why'd you make it political? That being said, Adam, how did Switzerland do?
I can't remember the medal table actually. They did all right. Medal. I know Norway came out on top. Let's see. Switzerland came in 8th overall, which not the best showing. But Norway on top, followed by the USA, and then the Netherlands.
Good job, Netherlands, considering you don't have any mountains at all.
No, but the Netherlands loves speed skating.
Some call it the cycling of the ice.
Yeah. Do you know there was once a economics paper written that proposed building a 2-kilometer tall mountain in the Netherlands to allow the Netherlands to practice winter sports?
I know, I had not heard about the 2-kilometer tall.
It was just a thought exercise. They worked out it is possible, but it would cost $7 trillion.
They already have all the land, from the sea, don't they?
I think it was something like the amount of reinforcement they would have to do in order to build this mountain. And the fact that it would fuck up weather and flight patterns all over Europe would be was that to factor in that cost as well. They determined it was technically possible.
Anything is possible in the Netherlands when it comes to terraforming.
Yeah.
Adam, do you have any final thoughts on the Olympics, protesting it, anything about the Olympics?
Yes, it will always have this political element, and there are resources that need to be used properly after they're finished for the Olympics, and it needs to be sure that these events don't hurt the people who are living in the place that hosts it. But I do think that we can still acknowledge the amazing things that we see in the world of sport and the Olympic Games. I watched some of the Super G, some of the downhill, some of the big jumps on the snowboard, the freestyle skiing, and I mean it's amazing. It's what these people do. The elegance, the grace, the strength, the speed. That is something that is really exciting and does bring joy. And I think that is something that we are allowed to enjoy despite our wokeness.
Yeah, and I think that this wouldn't have even necessarily been a noteworthy episode to bring up if not for the time in which we live. An Obama-era Winter Olympics and protests against it do not have the same oomph as ice in Milan, right?
Yeah.
I like that take, though. We are allowed to still find joy in these things despite critique of some aspects of it. And with that, more on a note of the time we live in globally, I would like you to close us out with a quote from Antonio Gramsci. And for context, he was a founding member of the Italian Communist Party and died in Mussolini's prisons in 1937. The quote, which I want you to read, first appeared in the weekly newspaper he edited called La Città Futura, which is the future city, and this comes from 1917 when he was 26 years old.
History teaches, but it has no pupils. The past explains the present, but it does not command it. The socialists must be the first to understand that the old world is dying and that a new one is struggling to be born.